If someone walked into your space for the first time, would they instantly know what you are? Or would they be a bit confused? Hotels and hostels both sell beds, but nobody confuses the two of those. Co-working flex spaces both sell desks, but many operators are trying to be both, and that's where the trouble can start. Welcome to this episode of Flex That Works. You're joined by me, Anne-Marie, and Graham from Baseworks. So today we're talking through the analogy of hotels and hostels and how they relate to co-working. So bear with us, right? Because this is an interesting one if you really flesh it out. On the surface level, you might say, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But if you really flesh it out, it's actually worth it because we always talk about what you can learn from other industries. So this is an interesting one to think about. So hostels, I'm thinking like social, you've got the shared energy, you've got the community, affordable, probably high energy in the space, but maybe there's high turnover, maybe there isn't. You have backpackers who stay for a couple of weeks or months at a time. Whereas hotels then, they're more private, they're quieter, more premium, service-led, and they're more predictable. So if you walk into most hotels, you probably know what to expect, whereas hostels can differ quite a bit. So both are profitable. Both are quite clear on what it is that they're doing for their audience. Neither is really sitting in the middle. Whereas in co-working and flex, some brands might not be 100% as to who they are and following the same split. So if we were to break it down, a co-working led space, we'll say, the hostel logic, what do you think would be the identifying factors?
For me, it all comes back to desired experience, right? So staying in a hostel, for me, is an entirely different thing to staying in a hotel, as you just said. But it's all about how you want to experience the space and what's going on around it, right? So certain parts of the world are better to hostel in, right? So places like, South America, generally people hostel. The Australia, the Gold Coast, all that people. And the idea there is generally people are traveling in ones or twos. It's a certain part of their lives or their careers as well. And it's a way for them to meet other people. So you're in a room with 6 or 7 other people and that starts conversation. So you can see how all of this kind of lining up with community-driven co-working spaces. Imagine you're new to a town or locality. Yes, you're just after leaving the city to move to a rural co-working space, a rural area. The local co-working space is almost like the hostel in, Cusco or one of these places, right? Hotels then, and I keep seeing the word hotelification when I'm reading articles around co-working and all that kind of stuff. And it's an entirely different offering. They're a bit more formal in their structure. Own doors, you have your own room on your own. You have your own, your own TV, your own bathroom, all that kind of stuff. The sharing element is removed from it, but there is certain areas that are shared, like the lobby, and that's what you're starting to see with certain, I suppose, co-working or flex operators now. It was an interesting conversation myself and yourself were having, and it was just to fragment it out and split it out to where we had. Kind of opens up a lot of questions, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it's like a different buyer psychology between the two. You're running there through the stage people are at, even in life, not to mind in work. And their work requirements are different. Who they're with is different. How they're spending their time and their day is very different. Hostels, people might crack onto the laptop early in the morning and then they're up for like a shared surf lesson in the afternoon and they want to be free. And then there might be late nights, around a campfire at some point. And then it's a late morning start the following day. There's that level of flexibility even in how people are accessing the space. Whereas hotels, generally your breakfast starts at 6:30, 7 and it's going to be finished at 10. So
it's self-serve versus being served, because I had a friend that spent months in a part of South America and rocked up, ended up staying in a hostel for like 2 months just for the crack. And like that, he'd help out behind the bar.
Yeah.
Whereas that would never happen in a hotel.
And the level of, like the number of people he probably met, if you were staying in, a Marriott or whatever, the same number of people would be coming in and out through the doors, but you wouldn't know. Whereas in a hostel, you have a good sense as to who's coming and going. So it's a very, very different experience to be there, So as a result, if you have different buyer psychology, people are in a different stage, they have really different expectations. And that leads to a very different operational model that the operator needs to have in place. So when it comes to this, I suppose, let's dive into the good part. Where do people go wrong?
you mentioned that you gave two very distinct examples of a hotel and a hostel at the start of the conversation.
And of course, there's a middle ground, and there's a
and this is where I was getting to.
This
is what I was getting to.
I saw your face.
It was the hotels that don't really know what they are.
Yeah.
But they don't want to be a hostel.
Can we stick with the clean definition now for the analogy?
No, but I'm just saying they don't want to be a hostel. They're definitely a hotel, but they're not a very good hotel. Because they're trying to.
I don't think there is many hostels trying to be hotels, and likewise,
No.
I think there's just bad hostels and bad hotels.
No, I mean hotel.
But I think in co-working, actually, you can get stuck. I think that is somewhere where operators can potentially not be clear themselves on what they're doing. Because if you can imagine somebody who wants to be running a Marriott, working in a hostel, they're going to be driven mad by the fruit bowl open to the flies that's on the shared community table in the middle of the day. You know what I mean? So I think it's also down to like your staff and your team. That's something that I thought about. I was like, gosh, like every element of your business has to know who you are. It's not enough that the person, the boss, or the operator knows that you're a hostel or a hotel. You can only hire people who want to work in a hostel or hire people who want to work in a hotel. You know what I mean? Because otherwise they're just going to throw the whole thing off, because again, go back to those expectations. Your person who comes in, your buddy, wanted to be in a hostel, and he probably didn't meet anyone who was telling him to put his flip-flops on because he's not allowed to walk around after a surf lesson. You know what I mean? The whole thing has to lend itself and flesh out like through all the different elements of the experience, I'm thinking about like community as well, because it's not to say, and I think this is somewhere that sometimes there's this idea that like, oh, like the grassroots vibe of co-working is right, and the flex and shiny serviced office is wrong. And I don't agree with that at all. And then we also hear the talk about the OG co-workers. I talk about the fold-up bikes inside the door, and they're working elbow to elbow around one table, and maybe knocking heads on different projects and stuff, versus I was in a space, that was like a 5-star hotel. Like people in there really didn't look like they'd seen each other before. It was no vibe. But that in itself is a community. Because if that's your expectation when you walk in the door, you don't want anyone to bother you. You want to go and sit at the desk, actually. And if you do want to have a conversation, maybe the conversations happen down beside an espresso machine. That in itself is actually working for everyone in the space, if that's what you want. You know what I mean? So it just lends, I know they're two really extreme examples.
Yeah, of course.
But that can be useful, at times when you're trying to place yourself in which situation is relevant,
No, you're right. I think it's good to acknowledge that we've taken it from two extreme angles. But like right now, with the new, I suppose, shape on the audience that are moving into the flex and co-working space, now is an incredibly important time to know exactly what you can offer and who you can offer it to.
So the question.
Yeah.
You're starting out in a town. Okay. There may or may not be even one other co-working space available. You might be the only one. You would love it to be a more service-led hospitality vibe. People in the area are looking for a hostel.
Doesn't matter what you want, it's what your audience want at the end of the day.
So you would say, take the business.
You've heard me say it time and time again, is listen and listen and listen to your audience. Open the door, see who comes in, ask the question, how did you hear about us? What's the problem we're solving for you? Why do you want to come to this space? And I don't mean ask it like, an interrogation, but you can, through nice conversations, you can extract all of that really rich information out of people. It's like anything. You'll see people, like the big word in startup land is pivot, right? We all start out with one idea, but it can often pivot to suit the audience that you didn't even know you're actually solving a problem for. So if you come into town with your big shiny glass box, concierge, white glove kind of approach, and realize that the only people coming in are, freelancers, artists, a more of a, I suppose, less formal type of audience.
And not motivated by those things.
Yeah,
lovely, but not motivated by it.
Exactly. Yeah, sorry. And that's probably a better way to put it. People that don't value the I suppose,
it's not important to them.
The minimalist, high-end design. If they just want somewhere to go. And again, we need to always remember, it's about work. But getting a day's work done.
They might want the slouchy couch that's been sat in loads. Yeah. I know. I think it's probably going to lead you to having wrong fit members. There's going to be tension in the space. You're going to have churn. They're all the reasons why we pay attention to the type of space. Yeah.
But put it this way, like if you were in a hotel behaving like you were in a hostel, what's going to happen?
Well, if your pal,
my pal's hostel that he was in anyway.
Behind the bar, you probably get in trouble. So tell me, what else can we learn from? What can you learn from the world of hostels, and what can you learn from the world of hotels? Is there anything, if we do dive into the two, if you're a co-working space and you were to borrow from hostels, or service-led and you were to borrow from hotels?
I think first of all, I think you probably, as an operator, you probably need to do some self-reflection. And then decide what am I? Am I the kind of operator that likes people, likes working amongst my community, or am I the person that likes serving my clients? I think that's the place to start. Obviously, your locality and your audience are going to define whether you're a fit for that locality or not. But again, I'll always come back to listening and learning.
I think the work thing is interesting because a hotel is like, if you think about it, there's a nice event coming up, maybe there's a big birthday in the family. You book a hotel, you all go, there's a dinner the first night, everyone uses the spa facilities on the second night, there's grounds and the kids all go for walks, blah, 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 blah. That's a weekend in a hotel, and it's a very specific experience. A hostel, you're actively like living.
Yeah.
Your buddy stayed on for an extra couple of weeks because he was like enjoying being there, because he was ingratiated into the whole environment. It's different, isn't it? If you've gone for the birthday weekend, you don't give a hoot if there's like somebody at the table beside you having breakfast who were there for a wedding the night before. You might have a little chat, but it's not really important to you.
The big thing here is cost as well, though. You just assume that like you can only afford to go to a hotel for so long. Hostels are more reasonable when it comes to the offering as well.
You will spend on it because it's a big life experience.
Yeah.
And it's a one-off, so you place value on it, and you're going to make memories, blah, blah, blah. Whereas you just talked about, where are you getting work done? I know for me, I don't need it to be, I want a nice environment, but I don't need it to be like 5-star to do my work every day of the week, So some people would love that.
So again, it comes down to what industry you're in as well. I mean, if you're a startup, right, you should be in that hostel type of thing all day long. You need to be finding your people. You need your network. You need the people that are on that same
journey
to Machu Picchu or whatever the end goal is, right? And then, as you said, I think hotels have the hotelification or have their place as well.
So in terms then, I suppose the co-working space and I think the hotel aspect is way more about experience, and I think the co-working / hostel vibe is more about meeting people where they are. It's like you're a bigger part of their project. Do you know what I mean? It's about getting the work done, without the bells and whistles, I'm thinking about the people who come into each, though. You can have people going into a co-working space who still don't want to talk to people.
But this is what I was talking about, desired experience. Like, there could be a time in your life where you're off on your holidays and you need to get some work done, or you decide to do a bit of, take the next 3 months to be a digital nomad. You could still be working in a very polished career, but again, it's all about desired experience.
Yeah. So anything around pricing strategy? I'm just thinking about the different spaces where maybe we could borrow. Is there anything around like offers or how things are structured? Like some hotels will charge you for the lounge, perhaps, or if you want to sit in, you need to grab a coffee. Like,
no, you've kind of nailed it. And I think a lot of it's a good question. I think a lot of operators are already doing it, because they'll have, just like you said, the lounge pass, which might be $70 a month. You come in, it's one big table, there's a coffee machine, but you don't get access to the hot desk section, which is a bit more tame. And then they don't get access to the dedicated desks where people have the coats hanging off the back of the chair, pictures of the kids, right? And then obviously you have the own door offices. So I think you can break up your space into suiting whatever audience come through the door.
I suppose your offer in your hostel is rolling as well. Like, your buddy was able to say, was he staying for another night or another month, and just decide there, and then it's super flexible.
Yeah,
and they're cool with that, because it doesn't matter. There'll be other people making the same decisions. Whereas
because there's a bit more of a transient movement
they need to respond to it.
Yeah.
They have to have an offer that responds to that audience. So again, that's really understanding how their buyer wants to purchase and wants to spend time in the place. Whereas the hotel, you need to fairly lock in how long you're going to be there for. And when you've decided, you've got your cancellations and all of that, there's not a huge amount of flexibility.
But you touched on it as well, the kind of, I suppose, how would you say it, the reluctance to adopt the flex work, dig into the co-working should all be about community, and I just think we're in a different world now, and it's moved. It's just moving, and you just kind of need to decide your segment, decide what's going to work for you as an operator, and let everybody else do their own thing.
Like any business you're ever starting, is there an audience for this thing? Go out and check it. Like some of the highest end spaces we've seen naturally are in the city in London. Of course, that's where those people are. Those same profiles of people might be where our hub is here, but you'll find that they probably don't care so much about the same comforts when they're in this location, because we're more of a beach vibe. You know what I mean? You're going out for your hikes in the summer. You're just coming in to take a couple of calls. So this place doesn't need to replicate the space that they're in the other time.
And just because you stayed in a hotel once doesn't mean you can't stay in a hostel, and vice versa. And just because you went on a hotel last year on your holidays doesn't mean that you can't mix that in. You can blend where we live in the world of flex work, right?
The worker, yes, but the person running the place needs to know it.
Yeah, exactly. So again, that could all come down to seasonality and stuff like that as well. Location is going to be massive for you.
So what we've talked about today is the fact that I think it doesn't, because we do talk to places who say, I'm super small, this doesn't apply to me, or there's so many locations in my brand that it's too difficult to control. I would say clarity matters way more than scale. Just knowing exactly who you are and who you're serving. We always come back to that, don't we? It's kind of a fundamental. So spaces that know who they are going to attract their members faster. They're going to retain them for longer. They're going to convert them easier as well when they do come in the door, because people can see, this place is for me. They're going to stay for longer, most likely, and you're probably going to make more money in the long term, because you're not going to be discounting things for people to stay. You're not going to be knocking edges off things. People are just going to feel like they fit and the model works. So we're seeing that you don't really win by blending models and trying to be all things to all people. Instead, it's much more beneficial if you win by choosing one and just committing to a path.
Yeah, I think the big danger here is getting stuck in the middle of the road. And usually anything that gets stuck in the middle of the road gets wiped out.
That's it, and we don't want that to happen. Thanks a million for joining us on this episode of Flex That Works. Stay tuned for the next one. Thanks for tuning in to Flex That Works. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss our next episode. Connect with us on LinkedIn, watch the full episode on YouTube, and you can explore free tools and resources over at baseworks.co. This is Flex That Works, powered by Baseworks, here to help you scale your workspace, making it simpler and less stressful.